Now that we've created a more advanced phone number regular expression, why don't we return to our PHP so that we can implement this and add some comments to make it easier to read. So I'm going to type preg match, and here we need to add our regular expression, so I will paste that in. Next, we need to add any flags that we require. For example, if we needed uppercase and lowercase letters interchangeably, we could say I, which correlates to ignore case. If we want global, we would not do preg match. There is no G flag in PHP. Instead, we would do preg replace or preg match all. Next, if we wanted dot all, which means that the period symbol also works on spaces, we could do S. And then finally, if we have multi-line, we can use M for multi-line. In this case, if we come back, we're using G and multi-line. So in that case, I'm going to make it multi-line and preg match all. Now we can also use the X flag so that we can add comments to these. So I'm going to add that as well. And before we do that, let's finish out our statement. We are matching this against a phone number. So let's create a variable right now called phone number, and I'm going to insert a US phone number. So we are going to match this against phone number. And where are we going to put the matches? We'll store them in a variable called matches, but we can name it anything we want. And finally, we'll run this in the browser to see what we get. And I'll make sure I close my semicolon right here. If I run this, you can see that we have an array, and I'll view the source. And you can see when we use preg match all, we have an array of arrays for each match. So that means if we wanted to separate this out, and let's say right here, we will add a wrapping parentheses for the area code, and I reload the page, you can see that we have an array. And the first one contains the full match, the second one contains the second match. So I'm going to remove that, and now we want to use comments so that we can more easily understand what our code is doing. So simply adding this X flag means I can now move this onto its own line. So I'll do it like so. And now I'm going to put each set on its own line. So here I'll say this bit of code is matching 1 dash or 1 or nothing. Just little notes to yourself so that you can more easily understand it. The next one is we're looking for an optional parentheses, and I see here this question mark should actually be up here. Next, we're looking for those opening parentheses to get the prefix. Look for 3 numbers and then another optional parentheses. So I will put this one on its new line. Look for the prefix, which is optional. Next, we're looking for a dash. Now this brings up another point. If I come back, you can see that we are matching this, but some people will do something like this, 615, 555, 1234. So shouldn't we make that acceptable as well? And if we want to do that, we can look for each occurrence of a dash. For example, here's one, and we can say look for a dash or a space. So with that in mind, I'll use a character class and say look for a space or a dash. And then we're going to do the same thing with the next occurrence. Now, as a rule of thumb, put your dashes at the beginning because those can also be arranged. So for example, if I wanted to say look for an A or dash or a Z, I could not do A dash Z because in this context, the dash is serving as a range, in which case we're matching any letter between A and Z. So we use a rule of thumb, we put the dashes at the end when possible. Now I'm going to return and bring that back to a space, and now once again we are matching everything. So I will take this and implement it into our regular expression by changing this and the next one here as well. So now, right here, I'm going to say look for a space, dash, or nothing at all. And then sometimes you might want to do an example like 555-1 or 5551 or 5551. Next, we're looking for the first 3 digits of the phone number. And then once again, we're looking for this, so I will copy that. And then finally, we're going to look for the line number. And that's it. So this is going to work identically. Let's make sure though. I'm going to return to Chrome, reload the page, and sure enough, we're still getting the exact same response. But note, as soon as I get rid of that X flag and I refresh, we're not going to get any match because it's confusing it. So make sure you always add that on. This may seem like a lot of work, but I promise you're going to thank yourself when you come back to this project months later, and now you know exactly what each important block is doing. In the next lesson, I'm going to teach you about conditional regular expressions, which allows us to specify if-then statements.